Thank you, Secretary Pompeo, for your service. Secretary Pompeo, we have quite the record of President Trump's business relations with Russia. Extensive reporting and public records show a large amount of money from former Soviet states and Russia into Trump projects. Trump International Tower and Hotel in Toronto, the Trump Hotel in Panama, the Trump Project in Soho and New York City are a few of the big examples here. And here's another one. A Russian oligarch bought a property from President Trump for candidate Trump at the time, or maybe a little before, for $95 million in 2008. Less than 4 years after President Trump paid $41 million. So he more than doubled his money. Donald Trump Jr. in 2008 stated at a real estate conference in New York, and I quote here, "Russians make up a pretty disproportionate cross-section of a lot of our assets," end quote. Donald Trump tried to build a Trump Tower in Moscow for 30 years. He even tweeted in 2013, "Trump Tower Moscow is next," that's in quotes. In 2015, answering a question from indicted Russian operative and alleged spy Maria Butina, candidate Trump made clear his desires with Russia, stating, "I would get along well with Putin and that I don't think we need the sanctions." Now the Russian ambassador to the United States has said the president made, and this is his quote, "important verbal agreements with President Putin." And he seems to know more about Helsinki and what happened there than the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. As we saw in Helsinki and throughout his presidency and the campaign, this president is extremely sympathetic to the very Russian government that attacked and continues to attack our democracy and those of our allies. It's a fact of political life today that many Americans are concerned about the unthinkable that a U.S. president could have a compromising relationship with a foreign power. The president could clear this all up in 3 simple ways: releasing his tax returns and those of the Trump Organization and the taxes from the various family businesses, some of which we don't even know about. After Helsinki, do you think that the American people deserve to know what's in President Trump's tax returns and business interests that are intertwined with Russia?
Senator, I'm going to try to stay out of the same political circus that you and I ended up in last time I was sitting here, and simply respond by saying this same president with which you seem to express such deep concern is engaged in a massive defense buildup which threatens Vladimir Putin's regime. He instructed us to put together a nuclear posture review that has set Vladimir Putin on his ear because of its robustness and the recapitalization of our nuclear program. He's kicked out 60 spies. We've banned Kaspersky.
Yeah,
we put $11 billion in the European Defense
Secretary,
Initiative.
you've already
No, Senator, actually, I haven't even begun to scratch the surface.
But you haven't answered my question, so let me try it a little different way. Wouldn't you want to know, as Secretary of State, I mean, I'm taking you in your sincerity here as Secretary of State, whether all these Russian financial interests, oligarchs, and others are part of the decision-making of the president? I mean, wouldn't you want that out in the open and to understand what went on at Helsinki? It's an easy kind of yes or no question.
Senator, I don't need second-hand understandings of what President Trump is instructing his administration to do to push back against Russia. I have first-hand understandings and directives.
Well, let me ask the question a little bit differently.
We've opposed
here.
Nord Stream 2. We've got a 4x30 out of NATO that also is a big setback for Russia. I mean, I'm happy to continue the list. I'm happy to cease there, but I will submit the entirety of this administration's actions against Russia for the record, if I might.
Please do.
We'll back a truck up and get it on in here.
Yeah, candidate Trump has failed to keep his promise to disclose his tax returns. Every presidential candidate since Richard Nixon has disclosed. Jimmy Carter even sold his peanut farm to avoid a conflict of interest. The situation with President Trump's potential foreign policy conflicts of interest is unprecedented and unacceptable. And under the Emoluments Clause, I think it's unconstitutional as well. But let me just ask a couple of questions about Helsinki. You talked about what you were tasked with. The Director of National Intelligence, Coates, stated that at the Aspen Security Forum that he did not know what happened during the one-on-one meeting in Helsinki. Did the President personally debrief you on this conversation, and are you 100% confident that you know everything that President Trump discussed with President Putin? That's a very easy yes or no. If you don't want to answer it, I'll move on to the next one. So yes or a no?
I'm very confident that I received a comprehensive debriefing from President Trump.
Good, okay. Now, do you know for a fact whether President Trump or President Putin discussed any investments in Trump properties or any Trump projects, such as the previous attempt to build a Trump real estate project in Moscow?
Senator, again, I'm going to try and stay out of the political circus.
No, but were you, sir,
were
you tasked with that? You gave us a list of what you were tasked with.
I came here to talk about American foreign policy today. I've attempted to articulate President Trump's policy.
All of these business interests are entwined, sir, with our foreign policy.
Yes, a foreign policy that has led to a massive defense buildup, a nuclear posture review that has frightened Vladimir Putin, 60 spies, 213 sanctions.
Let me also ask you about an additional question on Helsinki.
When I was a member of Congress, I tried desperately to get President Obama to do one of those things, and it was unsuccessful. When President Trump hosted top Russian officials at the White House last year, he bragged about how he had fired James Comey. At his press conference with Putin, President Trump called Special Counselor Mueller's investigation a disaster for the country. Can you tell us what President Trump discussed about the investigation during his private meeting with President Putin? I'm not going to talk about private.
Well, were you tasked with anything in that respect?
Senator, when I'm tasked about something for American foreign policy, I promise you this committee will know.
Okay, and you weren't tasked with anything there?
Senator, when I'm tasked with something by the President relates to foreign policy, I assure you that this committee will be made aware of it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.